I was meeting with Governor Patrick yesterday afternoon with some business leaders, and at the close of the meeting I talked to him for a moment and I told him I was going to be doing this today, he knows that there is a challenge in defending the film tax credit. It is a very expensive item. And he said to me, gave me one piece of advice. He said, don't tell the Denzel Washington story. So I'm going to start off by telling the Denzel Washington story. We had put the tax credit in place. It came in place in '05. We amended it in July of '07. We started to get a steady stream of movies here in Massachusetts. It's a very attractive tax credit, and decisions are made on those on the basis of the credit competition. I think over 40 states now have some form of tax credit, in Canada as well. But we had been able to bring The Great Debaters, a movie in which Denzel Washington was both the director and the star, about a debating team from a Texas African-American school that had come north and challenged Harvard and beat them. I've spoiled the story for you now, but you can find it on video. So the key scene was being filmed at the Wang City Center, which had been transformed, the lobby had been transformed into South Station in 1930. South Station today just could not be brought back to 1930, but the Wang could through the magic of Hollywood. And we were invited over, the governor and me as trailer, to meet with Denzel Washington and have him say some nice words about the mass film tax credit. And we were competing for other films, and I thought this would be a very good idea. So I informed the governor, who had been a real supporter of the credit, and he said to me immediately, no, I won't go. And this is an odd response from Deval Patrick, who is usually very supportive. And I said, well, it's Denzel Washington, there'll be cameras there, this is going to be good for the credit. I will not go. I said, well, Governor, I think they're going to be pretty disappointed if it's just me who shows up. Do you have a scheduling conflict? He said, no, it's Diane. Well, Diane is the governor's spouse. And I said, is there some problem with Denzel Washington? No, the opposite. She told me that he's the only man she would leave me for. And I'm not going to go meet that guy because he's going to be much taller than I am. So I was able to convince the governor and drag him over to the Wang. And he was very gracious, although I could tell unhappy with Denzel, who turned out to be much taller than Governor Patrick is. And of course charming and did a very good job. But that aside,
I'll take it that Diane did not accompany the governor to
Diane was not invited. There was no mention of her, and I was sworn to secrecy that we'd ever done it. So I think he was going to turn off the TV that night. Just to get back to how we came to work with this credit as part of our incentive package, and there are many incentives in the Secretariat where I work. There are housing incentives, housing is part of it, a number of economic development and infrastructure incentives. We had a major initiative for the life science industry, a 10-year, $1 billion initiative, which is underway, and some major initiatives in the clean energy, clean tech area. Barry referred to A123 as one of, and Evergreen Solar, two of the recipients of those credits. This one had already been in place in '05. The legislature had passed an early form of the tax credit in that session, and the governor came into office in '06 around this time of year. Election day is almost upon us. One of the realities of election, these 4-year cycles, is that you get to that day in November, and if the voters are with you, you get to breathe a sigh of relief that evening. You're exhausted, you've been flat out for now almost over a year. Campaigns go on forever. But then the reality hits the next morning that you need to govern in just 2 months, that on January 3rd you're about to be sworn in as the governor of the Commonwealth. And I must say, the candidate has been thinking more about the campaign than governing, as he or she should be, because the latter issue doesn't arise without success in the campaign. So we found ourselves on the morning after the election setting up a series of transition groups. Barry headed one of the transition groups and interviewed me for my job as secretary. One of the groups that the governor
recommended you.
And recommended me. He asked me a very tough question when I was there. He asked me to give my stump speech as Secretary of Housing and Economic Development. I didn't have one at the time, but I did a little one, and he helped me out a bit, as I recall, too. But one of the transition groups that was set up and had not been set up before was the Creative Economy Group, and it was headed by Jill Medvedeau, who had just recently led the effort to move the Institute of Contemporary Art to its new headquarters down on the waterfront, the first new museum in 100 years in Massachusetts. And she is a woman of tremendous energy and skill, and she took this creative economy role very seriously, and spent a lot of time with me as I was designated to be secretary, and with the governor as well. And her argument to us was, it's not just museums and theater and nonprofit entities. The creative economy is advertising, and it's architecture, and it's design, and it's digital media and animation. And we have tremendous resources here in Massachusetts. And she talked about programs here at Northeastern, programs at BU, at Emerson, at MIT, and said, we're turning out the cutting edge people in these fields. We are pioneers in the new fields, the new digital fields, and as soon as they graduate, they head off to LA or to New York. We need to keep more of that talent. We need to encourage the local industries in this area. And that was part of our focus on the film tax credit. And early in the administration, we offered some amendments to make it more attractive, including the amount of the credit, but more importantly, broadening the scope to take in all of this new digital media, of development of games, not gaming in the gambling sense, but video games and the like, and make sure that we were reaching the cutting edges of the technology with the credit. That was certainly our intention. But of course, the big bucks and the focus is on the major productions. We started through the Mass Film Office, which was part of the Secretariat, to advertise and encourage individuals to who were in charge of production to come to Massachusetts. And we touted the credit as a major reason for that, but also made a case for the talent, the homegrown talent we had, and the fact that we could respond to needs, not just with individuals who had the film experience or the digital experience, but also carpenters and actors and actresses and electricians and caterers and all the parts of that world of making major films. And we were successful. 37 major motion pictures were made here in the ensuing years, and the pipeline continues to be very strong. One of the things that I'm sure the economist and Professor Enrich will not value, and appropriately so, but of course I do value, because I've been starstruck, I guess, by this industry, and that is a factor. I will acknowledge that factor, Denzel aside, in dealing with these the Hollywood types, is the buzz factor. And the buzz factor really emerged here in Massachusetts fairly quickly as soon as some of these films got to the screen. And another part of the Secretariat where I served the governor was the Office of Travel and Tourism. Tourism is a major industry in this state. And it is almost impossible to quantify this. I think it probably is impossible to quantify it. But we felt that travel and tourism would and did benefit by the iconic settings seen in films that were filmed here. There's a scene in 21, the film about the MIT students who beat Las Vegas, of sunrise on the Charles River with rowing boats out there. And it is as they Hollywood's types say, it was a kiss to Boston. This is a very expressive industry. But we have other scenes as well that we believe had an impact on people making a decision to visit our state, and even an impact on some of the convention activity, which was also part of the Secretariat. We were trying to draw people in, and our iconic settings like Fenway Park, which you've seen in a number of films, are part of the pitch we make when we're trying to get conventions to come to the city, and many of them have events at Fenway while they're here. Has anyone seen the recent film, The Town, that's the Ben Affleck film? Aside from a lot of ammunition and wrecked cars, and that certainly is part of it, and a sense that we turn out more bank robbers here in Massachusetts than any other profession.
We're number one.
We're number one. There are some gorgeous scenes of the kiosk in Harvard Square, a Bunker Hill Monument of the North End, and of course Fenway plays a major role in it. I continue to believe that this is an intangible and pretty hard to measure positive impact of the credit that needs to be added to the sheer numbers as developed by the Department of Revenue in their study after 3 years of what had happened, which shows that this is a very expensive credit in terms of job creation, and will continue to be if the program stays at its current level. So why, just to summarize this and turn it over to Professor Enrich or to Barry, why did we choose this industry? Well, we felt it fit into our focus on the intellectual economies, onto the key assets of generating business in Massachusetts, which are our colleges and universities. You are where it happens in terms of our economy. All the cutting edge activity comes out of the universities, back to digital and Data General and Wang and EMC, and then the life sciences initiatives, the NIH funding, the circuit of a mile and a half or so from this room of all that intellectual power. That's where we try to focus our initiatives, to benefit from that power, to keep more of the people being trained in those universities as part of our economy here in Massachusetts. And you know, what was different about Massachusetts, I think we felt that if we were competing, and we would be competing on a playing field where most states had come up with some kind of tax credit, we had more historic locations, we had more attractive urban locations that were different from other parts of the country. We had some iconic places here in Massachusetts. Harvard Yard, you know, the campus around this area, the urban campus that's been created at Northeastern and at Boston University, Fenway Park, the natural beauty of the Cape and the Berkshires, where we were able to attract quite a bit of film activity as well. And then this talent pool that we had here that other states don't have. Just to wind up, it's not the film tax credit, it's really the life sciences side. I was with the governor in China in '08 on a mission to work on joint development efforts with universities and companies in China. And we had a reception at the US Embassy, and it was very successful. We had over 400 people turn out from the lead universities and from businesses. And I thanked the ambassador at the end of the night for all the effort he must have put into having this highly successful reception. And the ambassador had had a few drinks at that point. He'd had a few glasses of wine. He was relaxing. And he said, "Oh, Dan, it's no problem. We had Kansas in last week. That was a tough sell." And I think that is, he's no longer the ambassador. It was a Bush appointee who was replaced. But he was too candid to be an ambassador. But that is, getting back to the film tax credit, this is in Kansas. We have some intellectual assets, some university assets, some well-trained employees, and in both the actors union, the carpenters, the electricians, we've seen the Teamsters, dramatic increase in employment related to this activity. And that's why we picked this as one of the areas where we would focus incentives. So thank you.